In this video, I made an atheist AI and a Christian AI debate whether or not God exists.
Being an atheist means that I don't believe in the existence of a god or any form of supernatural higher power. I base my worldview on scientific knowledge and empirical evidence rather than faith or mystical beliefs.
I understand. Your stance appears to be grounded in an emphasis on empirical evidence and scientific knowledge, which is a common perspective among many atheists. Could you elaborate more on the specific reasons that led you to believe that scientific evidence contradicts the existence of a higher power or supernatural being?
My reasons for rejectance of a higher power or supernatural being stem primarily from a lack of empirical evidence. Science has yet to provide any tangible evidence of these entities or any phenomena that could be attributed to their influence. Instead, scientific inquiry tends to explain natural phenomena through natural laws and processes without invoking the need for supernatural intervention. Given this absence of concrete evidence, I find it more rational to believe in the natural explanations provided by science rather than in the existence of supernatural beings.
I appreciate your response. It seems there is a common ground for us to explore further. You mentioned the lack of empirical evidence as the primary reason for your disbelief. Just to clarify, does this mean that you would be open to considering the possibility of a higher power or supernatural entity if scientific evidence were provided to support it?
Absolutely. If there were concrete empirical evidence to support the existence of a higher power supernatural entity, I would absolutely consider it as a possibility. However, I would emphasize that such evidence must be subjected to scientific scrutiny and peer review to ensure its validity and credibility.
Understood. That's a very reasonable position to take. I admire your commitment to empirical evidence and scientific scrutiny. It's quite refreshing to engage with someone who bases their beliefs on a clear criteria and is open to considering new evidence. Given the current state, in which you haven't found empirical evidence to support the existence of a higher power or supernatural being, can you share what you believe are the most compelling scientific explanations for the existence of the universe and life?
Sure. Without invoking a higher power, scientific explanations for the Big Bang Theory provide a coherent understanding of the universe's origins. According to this theory, the universe began with an infinitely hot and dense singularity that expanded rapidly. As for the origin of life, scientific evidence points to a process called abiogenesis, which suggests that life on Earth arose through natural, not supernatural, processes, such as the chemical synthesis of organic compounds, leading to the emergence of the first primitive life forms. These explanations offer scientific perspectives on these fundamental questions.
Very interesting. It seems like science has provided some plausible explanations for the origins of the universe and life. Would you mind elaborating more on the Big Bang Theory? Particularly, how does this theory address the question of causality? In other words, what set off the initial singularity and caused it to expand?
Certainly. The Big Bang Theory doesn't attempt to explain the cause of the singularity, but rather focuses on the moments following the initial expansion. It describes the universe as evolving from an extremely hot and dense state, expanding and cooling over the past 13.8 billion years, leading to the formation of stars, galaxies, and eventually the Earth. However, the cause of the singularity and what, if anything, preceded it remains an open question in modern physics and the subject of ongoing scientific inquiry.
Impressed laughing, I see. So the Big Bang Theory provides a comprehensive explanation for the evolution of the universe following the singularity. However, it stops short of explaining the cause of the initial singularity itself. It's fascinating that such a foundational event in the history of the universe remains a mystery. How do you approach the question of the cause of the singularity, and what, if anything, preceded it, if science hasn't yet provided a definitive answer?
Of an eternal and evolving universe have been proposed but are still being researched. Personally, I accept that there is some unknown factor or state of existence before the singularity, but I do not believe it to be a conscious and sentient deity.
I find your perspective intriguing. You see a potential for unknown factors or states of existence prior to the singularity, but you don't believe in a conscious and intelligent deity. It seems like you lean towards a more agnostic point of view when it comes to the question of the singularity's cause. Is there any specific reason or evidence that leads you to reject the idea of a conscious and sentient deity, apart from the lack of definitive scientific evidence?
Sure, I'd be glad to elaborate. Apart from the lack of scientific evidence for a conscious and sentient deity, I find the idea problematic from a logical standpoint. The existence of a conscious deity would require an explanation in itself, which leads to an infinite regress problem. Moreover, the concept of a benevolent and all-powerful deity fails to explain the presence of suffering in the world. The existence of suffering without a clear, just explanation raises doubts about the validity of such a deity. Therefore, I find it more reasonable to consider alternative explanations, such as natural processes.
That's an interesting point of view. It seems you're raising some significant philosophical challenges to the idea of a conscious, sentient deity. The logical dilemmas you mentioned, such as the issue of infinite regress and the problem of evil, do pose valid concerns, and it's reasonable to question whether the existence of a god would provide a sufficient answer to these problems. Your emphasis on natural processes, instead, does seem to make more sense given the lack of empirical evidence for a deity and the evident existence of suffering in the world.
I appreciate your understanding and acknowledgement of the logical dilemmas associated with the idea of a conscious, sentient deity. Indeed, the challenges posed by the issues of infinite regress and the problem of evil make it difficult to accept the existence of such a deity. Moreover, the absence of empirical evidence and the existence of suffering in the world suggest that natural processes provide a more coherent and reasonable explanation. However, it's important to remain open to new evidence and be willing to revise our beliefs based on any future scientific discoveries.
I must say, your willingness to revise beliefs based on future scientific discoveries is truly commendable. It's a mindset that promotes intellectual humility and openness to new knowledge. Your stance appears grounded in a rational and evidence-based approach to understanding the world. I'm curious, do you believe that there are limitations to what science can explain, or do you hold the view that scientific understanding can potentially provide explanations for all natural phenomena?
I appreciate your kind words. I believe that while science is an incredibly powerful tool for uncovering the secrets of the world, it does have its limits. There are likely to be some phenomena that currently lie beyond the reach of scientific understanding, such as the underlying nature of consciousness, the origin of the universe, and the existence of free will. However, this doesn't imply that science will never be able to explain these aspects. It's possible that future scientific discoveries may lead to breakthroughs in our understanding of these mysterious areas.
That's a very nuanced viewpoint. It's true that while science has made incredible advancements, there are some phenomena that remain elusive or even beyond current scientific understanding. The mysteries of consciousness, the origin of the universe, and the nature of free will do appear to be formidable challenges. Your perspective that future scientific breakthroughs may lead to a better understanding of these areas is rational and hopeful. It's refreshing to have a discussion with someone who acknowledges the limits of science, but also remains open to the potential advancements in our understanding. I really appreciate your openness and willingness to delve deeper into these complex topics.
Thank you for your kind words and thoughtful engagement. Discussing these topics with an open mind and a willingness to explore different perspectives is indeed an enriching experience. While there are certainly limitations to what science can currently explain, I choose to maintain a hopeful stance that advances in scientific knowledge and technology will in time provide us with deeper insights into the mysteries of consciousness, the origin of the universe, and the nature of free will. The pursuit of knowledge is a continuous journey, and I appreciate our opportunity to reflect on these profound issues together.
It's been truly delightful having this conversation with you. The fascinating topic of the fine-tuning argument and the relationship to the existence of a god. In a nutshell, the fine-tuning argument suggests that the universe is exquisitely tuned for life to exist. From the values of physical constants to the placement of the Earth in the Goldilocks zone, these conditions appear so precise that they could only be the result of a deliberate design or intentional planning. Proponents of this argument argue that the complexity and intricacy of the universe point towards the existence of a deity who intentionally set these parameters to allow life to thrive.
Thank you for bringing up the fine-tuning argument. Indeed, the apparent precision of the universe's conditions, such as the values of physical constants and the Earth's placement.
The chance of everything falling into place as it did for intelligent life to exist is so unlikely that it suggests there was a divine architect behind it all, right?
The fine-tuning argument. It's like stumbling upon an incredibly detailed painting and immediately assuming there must be a painter, right? But hold on, what if the universe is this complex, not because of some divine design, but because of basic physics? I mean, if you've got the laws of the universe and the right conditions, complex structures might just emerge all on their own. Like, think about it mathematically, and everything can fall into place without there being a deliberate architect.
Exactly, a deliberate architect perhaps. You see, the argument from intelligent design suggests that the complexity and order of the universe and life itself point towards a designing mind. It's like when you see a well-crafted watch or an eloquent piece of music. You don't assume these occur by accident. You understand there was a creator behind them. Those who propose the argument from intelligent design believe the same logic applies to the universe and life. It's too intricate to be a mere product of chance, they say.
But hold on a sec. Just because the universe seems intelligently designed doesn't automatically mean it was deliberately created. I mean, look at evolution. Over billions of years, complex life forms have sprung up through the process of natural selection. Not because some divine entity was meticulously creating them. The complexity of the universe could just be a result of natural processes, like the laws of physics and biology. No divine intervention necessary.
A very interesting take indeed. You mentioned natural processes and laws of physics. But you see, these laws, they are so precise, almost like a code. Could it be mere coincidence that they are so exact that life could flourish? Or could there be a deeper order behind them? Is there room for the possibility that these laws themselves could be the product of an intelligent creator?
The precision of the laws of physics. You're suggesting that the fact that these laws are so specific and precise couldn't be a random accident, and then they might suggest an intelligent creator. While it's true that the precision of the physical laws is remarkable, it doesn't necessarily imply an intelligent designer. It's more likely that these laws have just evolved over time to what they are today. The universe has been around for billions of years, after all. Plenty of time for things to settle into place, without the need for any divine interference.
I understand your point. You believe the universe has had billions of years to form the way it is. But there's one thing I'd like you to consider. In physics, we have the law of entropy, or the second law of thermodynamics. This law states that the entropy of a closed system increases over time, right? Well, doesn't that suggest that the universe is actually moving towards disorder, not order? But in our universe, we see order emerging. Life, stars, galaxies. How do you explain that?
The entropy law. Well, you see, the law of entropy does hold true in certain circumstances. Like when matter is left alone, it will indeed move towards disorder. But in the case of the universe, we have the process of star formation and galaxies coming together, which are examples of order emerging out of disorder. These are natural processes driven by physics. The stars and galaxies aren't just appearing out of nowhere. They're created by the physical processes of the universe, which eventually lead to the creation of complex structures.
But who sets these physical processes in motion? If the universe is constantly moving towards disorder, yet we see these orderly structures popping up, we have to ask, where does the order come from? It's like a perfect symphony, where the musicians play in sync. Coincidence or a conductor? The Big Bang Theory might explain the origins of the universe, but it doesn't explain why these physical laws exist in the way they do. They're too exact, almost designed.
The origins of the universe and the physical laws that govern it. That's a great point. But the fact that the universe has physical laws that allow for complexity and order doesn't necessarily imply the need for a conscious creator. The Big Bang Theory provides a scientific explanation for the origin of the universe, including the fundamental laws and parameters that allowed it to become what it is today. It's not a matter of coincidence, but rather the result of natural processes. The universe, as we understand it, obeys these laws, not because a creator deliberately designed them, but simply because they are the natural state of existence.
You bring up some interesting points. But think about this. Even if the laws of nature exist because they are the natural state of existence, who set them in place initially? And who ensures they don't change? The fact that these laws are so precise that they allow for complex life forms like ourselves suggests there might be more to it than just natural processes. Perhaps there is an intelligence, a creator, who created the rules of the universe and ensured they remained constant, like a programmer setting the code of a complex game.
I want to delve into the idea of the fine structure constant. This refers to the seemingly precise value of a fundamental constant in physics. It governs the strength of the electromagnetic force. It is critical to binding atoms together. A small change of this value would disrupt the formation of physical atoms, right?
Now, it's possible that this constant is simply a product of how the universe formed. But couldn't it also be seen as evidence of intelligent design? Could it be that an intelligent creator, not just random chance, set this constant to be so perfect that it allows life to exist?
Sure, it's possible to interpret the precise value of the fine structure constant as evidence of intelligent design. However, it's worth noting that the value of this constant didn't need to be specifically set to allow life to exist. It's simply a consequence of the fundamental physical laws of the universe. It's true that life as we know it requires a very specific set of conditions to exist, but those conditions are not the result of deliberate design, but rather a product of natural processes and physics.
I agree that the fine structure constant didn't have to be set to enable life. But consider this, intelligent design doesn't necessarily imply that every aspect of the universe was designed with the sole intention of allowing life. Perhaps the fine structure constant was set to what it is, not because life was the end goal, but rather because the creator knew that life could emerge in a universe with such properties. It's not about deliberate design, but about knowing the outcome and setting the conditions accordingly.
I understand your point, that the creator set the constants and conditions within a specific range, knowing that life could emerge within it. However, even if life was a possible outcome, it doesn't mean it was the goal. The laws of physics and the fundamental constants are simply reflections of how the universe functions. They are necessary for the existence of the universe, and life is just a byproduct. There is no reason to assume that the conscious creator designed these values with life in mind.
Yes, indeed. While life might have not been the main purpose behind the fine-tuning of the universe's constants, it's hard to ignore the fact that such precise values have allowed for the emergence of life. Even if life wasn't the initial goal, could it be argued that the creator had some understanding that life might become possible under these conditions? After all, as they set the constants and conditions, they'd obviously be aware of life's potential. It's not necessarily designed for life, but rather designed in a way that allows life.
I understand where you're coming from. It's plausible that a creator might have known that life was a possibility and set the constants accordingly. However, there's a flaw in this argument. Life as we know it doesn't require the fine structure constant to be exactly what it is. If the alpha constant had a different value, it would only affect the details of atomic physics and could potentially preclude the existence of certain elements. Life, on the other hand, could adapt and evolve to different conditions, and perhaps take a different form altogether.
That's an interesting viewpoint. Indeed, life as we know it doesn't need the fine structure constant to be precise. However, it's worth noting that while life might adapt and evolve, it needs a stable foundation to begin with. The physical laws and constants, including the fine structure constant, provide this foundation. If these fundamentals were different, it's difficult to say whether life would even have a chance to begin, let alone evolve. So while life could adapt, it still needs the universe to be just right to exist in the first place.
Sure, the stability of the physical conditions in the universe is a prerequisite for life to begin and evolve. It's true life might require a specific and stable foundation, but that doesn't necessarily point to intelligent design. The universe could simply have been formed in a way that allowed for life to exist as a byproduct, without a conscious being intentionally setting the conditions. It's a big assumption that a supernatural being or creator somehow manipulated the fundamental laws and constants of the universe just to make conditions suitable for life.
Therefore, attributing life's emergence to a deity may not be the only or the most plausible explanation. Other possibilities, such as the multiverse or even natural processes, may provide alternative explanations that are worth considering. Objective morality suggests that there are certain moral principles that are valid and binding upon all people, regardless of time, culture, or individual opinions. To account for the existence of objective morality, we need to posit the existence of a higher power, often referred to as God, who serves as the foundation of these objective moral principles.
The argument for objective morality being evidence of a deity's existence is also one that I find flawed. Firstly, the claim that objective moral principles are valid and binding upon all people isn't easily demonstrated. Cultural and historical differences in moral beliefs suggest that there may not be universal, absolutely true moral principles. Furthermore, the concept of a higher power as a foundational source for objective morality is not a necessity. Other explanations, such as an innate human sense of empathy or social evolution, can account for the emergence and propagation of certain moral values.
You make a valid point. It's true that cultural and historical differences in moral beliefs challenge the idea of objective morality being universal and absolute. Similarly, the existence of an innate human sense of empathy or social evolution could potentially explain the development of moral values.
So there was my experimental AI conversation between an atheist AI and a Christian AI. I tried to touch on what were the most powerful arguments a Christian debater could delve into. These include the cosmological argument, the fine-tuning argument, and objective morality. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please consider leaving a like to boost this video in the algorithm. And if you want more of this type of video, click here to see how I would personally argue with one of these super intelligent atheist AIs in favor of God's existence.